Because multiple C's and D's, F's, and all the notes exist on the keyboard, we have to have a way of identifying which exact C or which exact F you need to play in a song. And so that's where we come up with the grand staff. The grand staff consists of the treble and the bass clefs. The treble clef is generally played by the right hand, and it ranges from middle C up to high F. And the bass clef, it is generally played by the left hand, and it is usually it usually involves the range of middle C down to low G. This also happens to be the standard range that you'll find in hymns in regards to how low and how high the hymn will be, because that's our general vocal range of what we can sing. So what we're going to be learning about in this lesson is how we can identify what these notes are on the lines and spaces of the staff. Each musical staff consists of 5 lines and 4 spaces. And each line and space represents a different note. But the way that these lines and spaces dictate which note is going to be represented is by what clef you'll see at the beginning of the line. So as I mentioned before, we have the treble clef as well as the bass clef in keyboard playing. The treble clef represents the high notes and the bass clef represents the low notes. In the treble clef, the lines and spaces are defined as follows. This very first line here is an E. And because this is an E, then we will go up in alphabetical order with the musical names of notes. And so we have E, then the next note in the space would be F, then G on the line, A in the space, B on the line, C, D, E, and then F. There are various ways that you can remember these different lines and spaces and what names they have. The main thing is that you do need to remember that this first line is E. And then we can go ahead and learn different phrases. The manual in this course doesn't use any type of phrase or anything to help you remember. But I like to use the phrase, every good boy deserves fudge. So as you can see, I went on each line note and used that phrase, every good boy deserves fudge. Because if you have, say, a note here on the D line, you're not going to start here and go E, F, G, A, B, C, D to help you identify it. Using these phrases will help you identify things a little bit easier. And then as you can see in the space notes, what we have left are F, A, C, E, and that spells the word face. So again, every good boy deserves fudge, except for on his F, A, C, E face. So now with the bass clef, because it's a bass clef is going to be representing different notes on these lines and spaces that are different from what the treble clef is. So I'll go ahead and start with this line here. In the bass clef, this very bottom line is a G. So if this is a G, then the next space note would be A, then the line B, C, D, E, F, G, and A. And so like I mentioned with the treble clef, we can just do things to help us remember what the line notes are, as well as what the space notes are. The little phrase that I use for the line notes in the bass clef is, Grandpa's belt doesn't fit anymore. And then for the space notes, I use the phrase, all cows eat grass. Again, this method of learning the names of the lines and notes, it's all optional, but I just wanted to go over this to give you just something to help you in learning this new part of reading music. On page 43 of your manual, you'll also notice that they've included other notes that are not on just the lines and spaces of the treble and bass clef. And these notes can be found here in the center. So middle C is in the middle of the staff as well as the middle of the piano. And so this kind of hopefully will help give you some reference in regards to where these notes are on the paper and where they're asking you to play it on the keyboard. So here's middle C, which is below the E line of the treble clef and above the A line of the bass clef. So you start here with the treble clef with that middle C, and then the next space note, which is still below this staff, is a D. And so anytime that you see this middle C written here, the treble clef, it is always going to be indicating that you play middle C. And then the D that is right next to that middle C will always be this key right next to the middle C. And so that's what is nice about how music is notated, is that they can dictate which keys down here are going to be played by which line or space they're shown here on the paper. So in the bass clef, we have the middle C as well. So these two are the same exact notes. And then we have the next note down, which would be a B. It's not yet on the staff, it's a little bit above. And so this B here would be played here on the piano. What I'd like you to do right now to help you get a little bit more familiar with what's happening on this page and how it's telling us what to do on the keyboard is I want you to start on this G, which is here written on the staff in the bass clef, and then it is found here on the keyboard. One of the ways that I can find this particular G on the keyboard is by locating middle C. And as you can see from this chart, it is going to be not the first G, but the second G below middle C. And so we know that the G key is found in between the first two black keys of the set of three. So here's the G, and then we'll go down to find the very next G. So once you've located this G on the keyboard, then go ahead and go up the staff, saying the names of the notes as you play it. So it would look like this. It would be G, A, B, C, D, E, and so forth. I just want you to be looking at this note and playing this key, because that is what will always happen when you see this note. This key will always be played. And so a lot of memorization is going to be needed in this portion of learning how to play so you can get comfortable with what these notes are telling you to do on the keyboard.